All right. So now we're going to look at multiplication. So multiplication, I'm actually going to show you three methods that I usually like to teach people or go over with and review people. Um, Besides estimating, of course, because of course you can still use estimation. And so to do this, I'm going to use 174 times 63 as the example in all three. It's up to you to choose the method that you prefer. And also, of course, in the discussion board, you can always add or comment on a different method if you know one. And you can add a video or a link to one in that discussion as well, just to show different people different methods. Because honestly, a lot of people have learned lots of different ways to multiply, although in essence, they are actually the exact same thing. It may not seem like it, but they're all using the same method, and it's all based off of what place value that you have in which you're multiplying. So first of all, I would like to estimate what our answer might be. Now, some of you will see 174 and say, let's just round it to 200, and let's do 63 as 60. Okay, and so if you do that, 200 times 60 will get 12,000. Okay, so our answer is going to obviously have to be less than 10,000 because this is much less than 200, even though this is greater than 60. All right, some of you may even get bolder and say, let's do 170 instead, 170 times 60, and say, okay, 170 times 60 is going to be 10,200. And so that means our answer would have to be greater than that. Well, if we do that, our answer will have to be greater than 10,200 because this number is much larger than that, and this is also larger than 60. Well, if we do that, we have a good range of what our answer should be around. It should be more than 10,000, and it should be less than 12,000. So if we do that, we know our answer should be somewhere in between. Okay, well, let's get started. So many of you learned this first method that I'm going to go over, and you will see how the other two honestly are a part of the same family. They're all doing the exact same thing. But you were told to generally start with the ones place, and you were told to do kind of similar to what we've done before, start at the ones place and just work your way up. But adding anything that's greater than 10, moving it up to the next level. So we'll see that here. So in this case, we would do 3 times 4, and 3 times 4 is going to be 12. So you were told to put down your 2 from the ones place in that, and then add your 1 over here. Okay? And you were told to keep multiplying with 3 to every digit. So 3 times 7 will give you 21, and then 21 plus the extra 1 that we have here is going to be 22. All right? And then let's put the other 2 to the next level. And 3 times 1 will give us 3, plus 2 will give us 5. And so we have 522 so far from just the 3. All right. Well, if we go to 6 now, you were told that because we're looking at not really 6, we're really looking at 60, we'll add a 0 here. Because anytime you multiply by something that ends in a 0 or a multiple of 10, a 0 is going to be at the end of your answer. So we're looking at the 60 times the 174 now. So we add the 0 already, and we just focus on the 6. So something that a lot of people also told me is that when they were in their class, they were told to cross those out or to just erase them because they were from the previous digit that we were looking at. Okay, so we're now starting from the 6. 6 times 4 will give me 24. So I put the 4 down, put the 2 up there. 6 times 7 would give me 42, plus the extra 2 will give me a 44. And 6 times 1 would give me, of course, 6, plus the 4 will give me 10. And now you were told to add these together, because this was what you got when you did 3 times 174, and this is what you got when you did 60 times 174. Well, if we add those together, we get a 2, we get a 6, we get a 9, we get a 1, and we get a 0 and a 1. And so we end up with 10,962. So many of you probably started this video off by punching your calculator to see what you would get. And this is exactly what you saw, 10,962. All right, so let's see this using the expanded form method. So we already talked about how to do expanded form and how that generally makes things a lot easier for us to look at to see what we're doing. So we take 174 and change it to 100 plus 70 plus 4. Then we take 63 and change it to 60 plus 3. And we're actually going to do the exact same thing we just did here. Except instead of writing down, this is two numbers, we're going to write down a couple of them. So we'll start with 3, and we're going to multiply it times each and every part. Now, I generally tell people when they're doing this to actually start off with the larger ones. And actually, that's what we're going to do. And there's a reason why, because it makes it look a lot easier. It makes it a lot simpler when you're adding these in the end. So we start off with the larger one. We'll have 60 times 100. So 60 times 100, well, 60 times 100 is going to be a 6 with 1, 2, 3 zeros. Okay. And now if we look at our next thing here, we have 60 times 70. 60 times 70, of course, 42 with those 2 zeros at the end. And then when we do 60 times 4, we end up with our 240. Okay. That's pretty simple to start. And now we go to our 3. 3 times 100 is 300. 3 times 70 is 210. And 3 times 4 is going to be 12. And some of you may be saying, whoa, that's a lot of zeros. That looks really easy to add. And that's why a lot of people prefer using the expanded method. 1, because it lines us up pretty easy to see. 2, it makes it easy to add up. Much easier sometimes than doing these where you have multiple things you have to bring up. And like over here, we have the 4 and the 2 and all different numbers. It makes it cleaner to see exactly what's going on. Now, but a lot of people, of course, prefer this method because this is the one that we're traditionally taught in school. But that's fine either way. In mathematics, you will see a lot of times that there are a lot of different ways to do things, and sometimes that's confusing for people. But the point of the different methods is not for you to know how to do all of them. It's for you to find one that works for you and use it. Use that one method that works for you that you're comfortable with. It's not to just use a plethora of different types of methods. It's for you to finally have something say, hey, I can now multiply in this instance. I'm going to use this method. Other stuff you're talking about, don't care. I really need to see it. So in this instance, we can now just add. And we get 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 2. That's 2. 0 plus 0 plus 4 is 4. Plus 0 is still 4. Plus 1 is 5. And now we get 6. And we get 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 3 is going to be 7, plus 2 is going to be 9, and 6 plus 4 is going to be 10. So once again, we get 10,962. Wow. So far, everything's good. From our calculator answer, we got 10,962. From the first method, which I'll call the traditional method, we got 10,962. From doing expanded form, we're able to simplify our numbers but have more to add. And we still get 10,962. And now I'm going to show you one other method that is very nice because it helps people understand area as well as multiplying, because area is just a multiplication problem. And sometimes people call it the box method. I like to think of it as just the area method because that's all it is. So we had 174, and we also have 63 that we're multiplying. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make rectangles which have our lengths of the 100 and with the 60, with the 3 and 100, 70 and 60, 4 and 60, 70 and 3, and 4 and 3, as you can see here. And so as some of you may see, isn't that the exact same thing we just did with the expanded form? It is. It's just written a different way. And sometimes people will write this as 1, 7, and 4, knowing automatically that this is the hundreds, the tens, and the ones place. And 6 and 3, knowing this is 60 and this is 3. But that is up to you if you want to, whichever way you want to write it. I write it this way because it's definitely 100% easy to see. Hey, I know that this is 100, this is 70, and this is 4. All right, and this is 60, and this is 3. And so what you put inside the box is the area for each, not inside the box. What you put inside the rectangle is the area for each rectangle. And so in this instance, we have 100 times 60, and so that would just be 6,000. 100 times 3 would just be 300. 70 times 60 would be 4,200. And then 4 times 60 would be 240. 70 times 3 would be 210. And 4 times 3 would be 12. And once again, we just add these up. But a lot of times at this point, because of all the zeros, it's really easy for people to add these together. So 60 plus the 4,200, 6,000 plus the 4,200, that's just going to be our 1020. So 10 and 200. 240 plus 300 is going to be 540. 540 plus 210 is going to be 750. And then we have 12. And so that's just a little easier to add. If you wanted to write them all out, you could have done that as well. But we just did that recently, so I just wanted to show a different way that sometimes is easier for people when they have this method. It's easy for them to add pieces together really quickly. And so in this instance, I add and I get, of course, the same answer. 2, I get a 6, I get a 9, and I get 10 in the front. So I have 10,962 once again. Now, once again, we started off with estimating, and we said it had to be between 10,200 and 12,000, and our answer definitely is. And so we know we are most likely accurate. If you want to check your calculator, some of you probably did that again in the beginning, and you saw this is what the answer should be. And so I have shown you 3 methods that you can use to multiply. Of course, there are tons. You can learn Chinese multiplication and type that into Google if you want to, or X multiplication. People have come up with all kinds of different ways to multiply. But again, in essence, they are all just looking at what place value am I in, and if I multiply it times this one, what do I end up with? Let me add all my pieces together at the end. All 3 methods that we just saw all do that. They all look at the place value, multiply it against other place values, and add the results. So that is multiplication, and we will look at the inverse of multiplication very soon, which is called division.